Hey guys, welcome back to another exciting episode of Jace Love Strength. We just finished the 2026 World's Strongest Man, and what an exciting event and final it was. I'm not going to spoil the results for you completely and totally here. You're going to have to go through the recap with me. I will give you a bit of a spoiler though and say that it was very much a two-man race. So, if you're not a fan of either Rayno Nell or Mitchell Hooper, you're probably not going to like the results because those two just ran away from the rest of the pack. They did have someone else on that podium, though, because it's a three-man podium, because it always is. So who would find their way on the podium alongside of Rayno Nell and Mitchell Hooper? And, more importantly, who between Mitchell Hooper and Rayno Nell would become a two-time World's Strongest Man champion? You're here to find out. Let's answer that question. So we're going to go through here real quick, and we are going to start out by talking about the day one, events. So through day one, basically what we had, we'll talk about the groups, right? So going into the groups, basically we'll tell you who won the groups here. So Mitchell Hooper had the most points going throughout the groups, basically. So they give him 10 points. The second most points awarded through the groups was Rayno Nell. So they hit him up with 9 points. Austin Andrade, 8. Eddie Williams, 7. Andre Fojtu, 6. Pavlo Cordiaca, 5. The Dragon, 4. Trey Mitchell, 3. Matt Rag, 2. And Nick Guardione, 1. So those are the points that they start with before we ever do our first event. Now, with that being said, we go over here and we sort this. And we can see that in the first event, the Kanak Flip and Carry, Rayno Nell gets a victory and Mitchell Hooper gets second place for 9. So if it was Hooper with 10 through the groups and Rayno with 9 through the groups, and then we get Rayno with 10 in the Kanak Flip and Carry and Mitchell Hooper with 9, we're looking at a 19-point tie through the first event. This is exactly what you want to see if you're those guys, and if you're exciting and want to see a big battle, you're starting out shaping well. Pavlo's a third-place finisher in the Flip and Carry. Eddie Williams, 4th place. Fojtu, 5th. Matt Rag, 6th. The Dragon, 7th. Trey Mitchell, 8th place. Austin Andrade, 9th. And Nick Guardione, a 10th place finish. That meant that we had to go to our second event of day one in the finals, and that was deadlift for reps. They could choose to either do 360 kilograms or they could choose to do 400 kilograms. When it was all said and done, you had Rayno Nell stepping out and winning the event with 5 reps at 400 kilograms. Nobody touched him. So he gets a second event win all by himself. 2 for 2, baby. Then there was a tie for second place between Mitchell Hooper and Matt Rag. So instead of a second place by himself, Mitch, he has to share it. So instead of losing 1 more point to Rayno, now he's going to lose 1.5 points, right? Eddie Williams gets 7 points. The Dragon and Trey Mitchell tie, getting 5.5 points. That has to be a disappointing result if you're Trey Mitchell. Andre Fojtu, 4 points. Austin Andrade and Nick Guardione, the Texas boys, tying with a single rep at 400 kilograms for 2.5 points apiece. That was a PB for Nick Guardione, so he's extremely happy to pull 400 kilograms. On the other hand, you expected Austin Andrade to be competing for a win here, and 1 rep is not a good sign. Turns out he hit his head in the Kanak Flip and Carry, gave himself a concussion. It was costing him here, and he would withdraw from the competition after the deadlift. That meant that we only had 1 event remaining on day 1 of the finals, and that was the Titans toss. So if you were watching my live stream, I said, hey, Nick Guardione may be at the bottom of this board, and he keeps finishing 9th or 10th place in these things. It's not going to happen here. This guy can throw. Expect Nick Guardione to pick up big points. He made me look smart. But before we get to Nick Guardione, I want to point out it was 10 points for a certain someone. And that certain someone was a gentleman by the name of Rayno. That's right, Rayno won his 3rd event in a row. 9 points went to a person over here by the name of Mitch Hooper. You get the idea? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Right. And then we had a 3rd place finish for Nick Gardione. Like I said, great points for Nick Gardione here. 4th place goes to Pavlo. 5th place goes to Matt Ragg. 6th place in the toss to the Dragon. 7th place to Trey Mitchell. 8th place to Eddie Williams. 9th place to Andre Fojtu. He's shown that he really struggles at throwing, and it cost him here. He fell back and lost some considerable ground with this event. But that's how things ended on day 1. So when all was said and done, we went into day 2, which we're getting ready to cover now. So when we started day 1, this was when we ended day 1 and started day 2, it was Rayno at the top of your leaderboard with 39 points. Mitchell Hooper 2.5 points back of Nell at 36.5. As you can already see, they have built a commanding lead over the rest of the field. Eddie Williams is in your 3rd place position, but he's way back at 24 points. Matthew Ragg 21.5. Pavlo Kordiaka at 20. Martins Lises at 18.5. Andre Fojtu at 18. Trey Mitchell at 15.5. At this point in the contest, Trey Mitchell's trying to rebound, but he's just not doing it. If you're a Trey Mitchell fan, you're looking at it, and I am a Trey Mitchell fan, and I found myself thinking, Trey doesn't have a shot in Hades. He doesn't have a shot in Hades of making the podium this year. Better luck next year. Nick Gardione with 12.5 points, tying his fellow Texas boy Austin Andrade, who had already withdrawn. But the competitions don't end after day 1. We got a 2nd day of the finals, and we need to break it down now. We go to day 2, and we start out with the max log lift. And when we do this, we see that it is won by, not that, not by Mitch. No. We see that Trey Mitchell wins your log lift at a weight of 213 kilograms. The Big Thicket says, I need some big points, and I'm going to claim some big points. He gets his first win after having a whole lot of 7th and 8th place finishes. He needed this one big time. Mitchell Hooper and Andre Fojtu, they share 2nd place. It's the 2nd time that Mitchell has shared 2nd place in the contest, so they get 8.5 points apiece. Rayno, doing better than a lot of people expected he would in this. They expected Hooper to gain some ground on him, but I think they expected him to gain more than 1.5 points. Rayno gets 7 points with a 200-kilogram press. Very, very respectable. The rest of the field that managed to get a lift all managed to get up to 191. So that's 4.5 points that Pavlo Kordiaka, Martins Lises, Matthew Ragg, and Nick Gardione got to put on the board. The only person that did not manage a lift was Eddie Williams. So that meant it was time for the Atlas Stones. And going into the Atlas Stones, you had Rayno with a 1-point advantage over Mitchell Hooper. Now, the way they settle ties, just in case we're wondering, hey, what happens if Mitchell beats Rayno by 1 position? Well, in that case, Mitchell Hooper would be your winner, because what they do in the event of a tie is they look at who does best in that last event. So essentially, it's kind of like baseball. The tie goes to the base runner. In this case, the tie goes to the Atlas Stone runner. Whoever does the best in the Atlas Stones wins the tie. So basically, what we're really looking at is they had so many more points ahead of the competition. Whoever performed better in the Atlas Stones between Rayno and Mitchell Hooper was going to be your champion. It didn't matter what anyone else did. One of those two was going to be your winner. The only question was, who was going to be in second? Who was going to be in third? Because 1 and 2 locked up between Mitchell Hooper and Rayno. But who was going to be bronze? Well, to get the answer, we have actually got to look at the Atlas Stone points. So when we do that, we see that the Atlas Stones are won by the Big Thicket Trey Mitchell. After having almost no points throughout the first day of the final, he ends the final with 2 victories. He wins the max log. He wins the Atlas Stones. So Trey gets to add a whopping 20 points to his total to end the competition. That's exactly what you have to do to make a guy like me look like an idiot when I count you off after the first day and I say, this guy doesn't have a chance of making the podium. If you get 20 points in the last two events, maybe you do have a chance. Let's find out, though. Mitchell Hooper manages a second place scoring in the Atlas Stones. He got 4 in 28.67. That meant that Trey Mitchell was the only athlete that managed to rack all 5 stones. But Hooper, out of those who got 4, did it the fastest at 28.67. The second fastest time for 4 stones was owned by the Dragon at 29.71. Fourth place finish goes to Pavlo Kordiaka. Rayno Nell had to settle for a 5th place finish, getting his 4 in 35.01. Now here's where it gets really, really exciting. Remember, everything came down to this last event. And as it would turn out, everything would come down to this last stone for these two guys, the 4th. Because Rayno Nell just beat Mitchell Hooper at racking the first stone. Then Rayno Nell just beat Mitchell Hooper racking the second stone. Then Rayno Nell just beat Mitchell Hooper racking the third stone. Then Rayno Nell had a lead on the 4th stone, but he dropped it. And not only did he drop it, he rolled it forward. And it looked like, I wasn't hearing it, Mitchell did so well at the 4th stone, it really wouldn't have mattered if there was a penalty or not. But I suspect they did give Rayno Nell a penalty because it looked like after he rolled it, before he tried to pick it up, it looked like there was a halt in the action. And it looked like it was about 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds before he tried to pick up the stone again. So I'm guessing because he rolled it, they said, okay, don't pick that stone up, you got to wait. This is all speculation on my part. I don't know. In the end, like I said, it doesn't really matter because by the time he dropped it, Hooper was already going to beat him in the stones, and that's all he had to do. So Rayno Nell, 6 points there. Andre Fojtu, 5. Nick Gardione, 4. Matt Ragg, 3. Eddie Williams, 2. So that means all the points have been distributed. And when we go back and look at it, your world's strongest man is the Moose, Mitchell Hooper. Moose. With 54. Rayno Nell, 2 points back, 52. He does not defend his World's Strongest Man championship. He comes close, and he had a very, very great group run. He had a very, very great final. Just came up a bit short in the very, very end. And then Trey Mitchell, the big thicket, completely out of contention, virtually no chance at all going through day 1. The only way that he could really have a chance to make the podium would have been if this big guy, this big lug, just decided to go out there and win the last 2 events. And he happened to do that. So in the end, he winds up with 35.5 points, and he gets to join Hooper and Nell on the podium. Pavlo Kordiaka and Andre Fojtu managed a tie for 4th place at 31.5 points, just edging out the Dragon. Now, I'm going to give Andre Fojtu a little bit of shine, because even though he doesn't make the podium, let's not forget that this young man is only 24 years old. Okay, he didn't make the podium. He looked phenomenal through the groups. He didn't look quite as good in the finals, with the exception of the log lift. However, a 4th place finish when you're only 24 years old means that this kid is going to improve. He's going to get a lot better. The best of him is yet to come. He's going to be a scary force, a problem to deal with. Again, they just barely edged out the Dragon. Matthew Ragg, 29 points. Eddie Williams, 26. Gardione finishing in the 9th place position with 21. And then, of course, Austin Andrade at the top because he had to withdraw after the second event of the finals. But that's your results, guys. Your winner of the World's Strongest Man 2026 is a guy from Canada by the name of Mitchell Hooper. But he's got some serious talent that he has to contend with going forward. And that's a guy from South Africa, the Rayno Nell. This is an exciting rivalry that's shaping up. We didn't even have Tom Stoltman in the final. Tom Stoltman's going to be back next year. And he's going to be out for vengeance He's going to say, guys, the only reason you did that is because I wasn't there in the final. He's going to have something to prove next year, Big Tommy. But what a rivalry shaping up between Rayno and Mitchell Hooper. And as I was telling the guys on my live stream, here's the crazy thing about what happened here. Rayno was doing so well through the final and leading for most of the final, stretching his lead a little bit more each event. And then he comes up just short. That's going to hurt. That's going to ache. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow. And having that competitive fire, that competitive spirit, Rayno is going to go back to South Africa. And he is going to train like a madman. He is going to come back with something to prove because he does not want to lose it next year by the thinnest of margins, just a hair. He's not going to want to have that happen. He's going to refuse to let that happen. But Mitchell Hooper is going to know that that's going to be in Rayno's mindset. Mitchell Hooper is going to know that Rayno is going to want revenge. Mitchell Hooper is going to know that Rayno is coming for him, which means that if Hooper wants to stay on top, he's going to have to match that intense training of his own. He's going to have to attack it just the same way that Rayno is. So what I'm telling you is they just drove each other in 2026 to new heights. They pushed each other to greatness. But as much as they pushed one another in 2026, I think they're going to push one another even further in 2027 because each one realizes they have to be pushed a little bit further if they're going to stay on top. And again, we'll have Trey Mitchell coming back with confidence of being on a podium. We'll have Tom Stoltman being back. And who knows what's going to happen in the World's Strongest Man between now and then. Strongman is changing rapidly. The guys are getting younger. They're getting better. They're getting stronger. It's an exciting time to be a fan of our sport. Right now, congratulations to your podium, Trey Mitchell, Rayno, and of course, your grand champion, your World's Strongest Man, Mitchell the Moose Hooper. Thanks for hanging out with me this week, guys, and I'll be seeing you soon. Jace Man out.